Hi guys, my name's Bailey. I'm going to be giving you guys an informative speech on how culture influences communication. To introduce this topic, I'd like to give you guys a quote. Communication is the essential medium of a creative culture, the communal sea in which we all swim. A company that can't communicate is like a jazz band without instruments. Music just isn't going to happen, by John Cow. I think this is a good quote to show that if we aren't able to communicate with other cultures and communicate in different environments with people, nothing's going to happen in the workplace, in school, in a lot of different areas. I think culture is something that has a big impact in all of our lives. We grow up in a culture and we continue to change that culture and make different and new cultures throughout our lives, and it impacts us from birth until death. Culture influences our communication, how we talk to each other, how we do with each other, what kind of communication is good and bad. So I think that's something that is important for us to understand. This topic has my interest personally because I have studied culture a lot in high school and college. I love cultural anthropology, and I think it's something we should all have an understanding of when it comes to culture and influencing our communication. I'm here to tell you today about how culture influences communication through our nonverbal communication, the use of language, and the way we listen and our listening skills. To start, I'd like to talk to you guys about how culture influences nonverbal communication. It influences gestures, which are deliberate movements and signals. These are an important aspect of nonverbal communication because these are things like waving hi or putting your thumbs up for good. Some of these things mean different things in other cultures, and they could be bad to other cultures, so we need to be aware of that. Body language and posture is another thing that's influenced heavily. These are things like standing up, putting your shoulders back, having your back straightened while we're talking to each other, and those things are important to other cultures. Proxemics are influenced by cultures as well, is another way to say our personal space or the amount of distance we need in different social situations. In some cultures, it's okay to stand really close to each other while you're talking to each other, like friends and all that. I know in the U.S., and for me personally, it's kind of different for have a friend or somebody in your personal space talking to you like right up close. So that's something we have to be aware of. And as you can see, culture has an influence on how we use our nonverbal communication. It takes me to my next point about how the use of language is affected by culture. Before we get to that, though, I wanted to show you guys a few graphs. On the top, it shows our limiting English proficient and English proficient races in the U.S. As you can see, lots of Latinos and other races are not English proficient at all, and it's less than 13% for most of them are English proficient. So it's important to know about nonverbal communication. And then the bottom graph shows the amount of people in the house over 18 that speak a different language other than English. It's key to see how many people in the South and in the California and Texas and all that don't speak or that speak a different language other than English. And so we have to be aware of that and in our nonverbal communication understand that. Next, I'm going to talk about our use of language, and this includes what kind of dialect we have. Dialect has its own grammar, vocabulary, accent, and common expressions as well as pronunciation rules that make it unique from a different region. And the graph or the map below, you can see the U.S. has about 25 different dialects, and maybe 30 plus, you could even say. And culture influences that, and culture influences our dialect in the use of our language and how we pronounce things, and that's important to understand when we're in different areas of the country. Another example of how culture influences the use of language is what kind of words we use and what those words mean to us. Some words in our culture might mean good things that in other cultures might mean bad things. So we just have to know what kind of words we are using with different cultures that could affect how we communicate with them. Another example is of how we talk or the way we talk to others. That's kind of like along the lines of dialect and what kind of language we're using and how we talk to each other. Our use of language is influenced by our culture in many different ways. If we understand how it's influenced, we can better communicate with other people from different areas or regions or cultures. In short, the use of language is influenced by culture and is shown through our words and how we talk or form sentences. Next, we will talk about how culture influences our listening. Finally, I want to talk to you guys about how culture influences listening. In cultures like the US, where information is stored effectively on our phones and in Google search, we just solely write down information. We don't listen to what the meaning of what somebody's telling us. But in other cultures we like to call oral cultures, they worry about listening to what everybody else is saying and what the meaning of what people are saying to them. Culture influences the way we listen to other people and how effectively we decide to listen, like as I told you above. How we listen to information, how we process it, what we focus on, and we believe we are expected to react and or respond to all come from our own unique cultural conditioning. Kamasico Global quote. This just shows, like if we listen or how we process the information is influenced by our culture. Now that we understood how culture influences our listening, we can conclude on what kind of impact that culture influencing our communication has in the world. In conclusion, we have shown from this speech how culture influences our communication through nonverbal communication, the use of language, and the way we listen and our listening skills. Study of culture and how it influences communication is always going to be going on. We won't ever have a fully right answer on it, or there isn't exactly a right answer on how our culture influences our communication. So we just have to keep trying to have a better understanding of culture and communication. As a community, we have to try and learn each culture's different kind of communications and how they communicate and what's a good communication to them and what's bad communication to better communicate with others, and then it can help us all in our communication skills and the way we interact with others. Just my reference page. Just want to thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something about how culture influences our communication and can take this into your own life. Thank you.